Okay, so I think it's probably best if I turn to the panel directly and let them introduce themselves, tell you a little bit about what they do. So if I start with Avery, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into your current role and what that is?
Yes, of course. So, like I said, my name is Avery, and I am originally from Kansas in America. And I studied in my undergrad um, psychology, and then I came to University of Manchester to do business psychology as my master's. I knew I wanted to get into HR back in my undergrad. I wanted to do something with psychology, but full-on counseling was a bit, I think, too far on one end, but I still wanted to do something that helps people every day. And that's where HR came into play for me. So when I came to do my business psych degree, it was kind of everything that I was looking for in terms of entering the HR world. And currently I am HR and talent manager at an e-commerce agency in Manchester called Ampersand. So I work with a team of 30 people, very small company, but my role is, it's just me in HR. So it involves everything from recruitment to learning and development, well-being, engagement, your normal HR, kind of not the fun stuff as well. And yeah, that's a little bit about me. Briefly, I think I covered everything.
How long has Alpha been running for?
Oh, great question. So we've been around for 10 years. So still not at the startup level anymore, but definitely still new and changing with the times. It's been really interesting actually the past few months with
I've heard about their work,
pandemic.
that's why I'm asking. It's really interesting.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
yeah, I have, yeah.
Well, that's cool.
Just some things I should have mentioned. If you have got questions, please send them to Amanda, who will have a look at those. And also, just so we've got a register of attendance, if you could send your ID number um, through the chat, that would be great. Okay, if we move on to Victoria, then, do you want to tell us a little bit about your current role and how you encountered that?
Yeah, so my name is Vicky. I studied psychology as well in Manchester for my undergrad. And then I did a master's in organisational psychology, and now I work as an R&D consultant for a psychometric test publisher. I've only been working there about 8 months, so I'm involved in designing, writing, creating, and validating psychometric assessments, mainly for HR purposes, so things like recruitment, personal development, various personality assessments, cognitive and aptitude assessments. And I do a little bit of consulting in there as well when I do webinars and so on. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do after graduating. This is something that I kind of only decided after. So it was a bit of a difficult journey. I think I just did kind of admin roles when I graduated, and then I decided I wanted to study organisational psychology to kind of learn more about that and what kind of careers were involved in organisational psychology. And that's when I kind of decided to kind of pursue psychometrics because it's something that I was always interested in. So for me, like, my master's was a really important part of getting to where I am today. But I started my role as an intern, which was also really good to kind of train. And yeah, I think that's kind of my story.
I think it's, again, I make this point a lot during these sessions, but I think it's really interesting that, you didn't have a very direct, idea of where you were going to go. But you knew roughly that it was going to be something to do with psychology, but you weren't sure straight after uni. So you did something else for a bit and then you
Yeah.
found your way back. And I think that's a really reassuring message, because I know that a lot of students are very anxious, that they, oh my God, I don't know what to do. I don't know what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And, the other thing that we often say is, at least if you can rule out what you definitely don't want to do, and if you can just try and get as much experience in different domains, then that's fantastic.
Yeah, that's definitely a key thing I would say is, not to worry if you don't know straight away, because there's time.
Okay, thank you, Vicky. We're going to turn to Isis now, who was probably one of the very first students or cohorts of students that I taught properly or formally when I started this job. So it's really wonderful to have Isis back. Isis, what have you been up to?
I've been up to a lot. So I have obviously an undergrad in psychology. from way back when. And then during my undergrad, I actually thought I wanted to do forensic psychology. So I really set myself up to do forensics. I did quite a few internships and volunteering with like the probation board, and honestly just pestering people to do like work shadowing. I'm pretty sure Doran was one of them. So that I could get as much experience as possible to then go into work. And then life kind of swung me in a different direction, for better or worse. And I ended up working in recruitment and in sales for a couple of years, and then decided to go into organisational psychology. So I went back to the University of Manchester and did a master's in that. As forensics is just a bit heavy to kind of deal with that all the time. So I did my master's. Alongside that, I was working within a people management, people strategy service anyway. And yeah, I guess fast forward now, I contract as a business psychologist. So I've worked with different companies to embed new L&D programs, to do management development programs, to embed well-being strategies, interview strategies. Currently, I'm working for AO.com for another 3-4 months, where I'm redesigning their onboarding strategy from a people experience perspective. Which essentially just means I'm looking at what's already there and seeing what can we do to make people just feel happier when they're joining a business up until about the end of their 3rd month.
Wow, it's just amazing. It's like, it makes me really proud to see you all and to see how you've developed in this time. Like, I feel like an emotional parent almost, listening to that. It sounds amazing. It sounds like you're doing really well, and I'm sure there'll be lots of questions for you in a moment. Alisha, tell us what you do, and also I want to point out that Alisha has an excellent YouTube page, so feel free to pop that in the chat, Alisha, if you haven't already, and maybe you'll get some subscribers today.
Yeah, that's great, guys. Please subscribe to my channel. I'll put it in the chat. But yeah, my name's Alisha. I'm from Birmingham, and I graduated from the University of Manchester with a psychology degree last year. My journey into HR, I kind of wanted to do HR when I was doing my psychology degree. I actually tried to apply to do like a placement year, but that didn't really work out. But that didn't stop me from, trying to get into the field. So what I did was, in my 3rd year, I took a non-psychology unit. So I took HR, human resource management, and I really enjoyed it, did really well in it. So I decided that I wanted to know more about it. So I did a master's degree in human resource management. I just finished that last week. So yeah, that was a lot, but really rewarding. And I do feel like I got like a lot of different like skills and experiences from that, because I did a few like unpaid internships while I was doing that. One was in like administration. So I was at like a recruitment company and just like was understanding like just how to work with admin, and also I did like a learning and development placement as well, and that really definitely helped me. And then also, like, whilst I was doing my master's, I was just applying for like loads of like grad roles or just internships, anything I could get my hands on. And now currently I work at Dassault Systems, which is a software company. It's like a global one. We've got like 270,000 customers, 25 million users across 11 industries. And my role currently, I'm just a HR intern at the moment. I've been in the role for about a month. Yeah, it's been really like rewarding and stuff already. I've been involved in numerous projects. I'm just doing like also just the basic admin work, like onboarding, offboarding processes. And yeah, that's just been really like enjoyable. And whilst I was doing my master's degree, I started my channel HR Talks with Leash, because I just wanted to give like students advice and tips just on HR and stuff, because I looked on YouTube, I just didn't see anybody really doing that for students. I was like, you know what, let me just fill that gap. So yeah, that's a bit about me.
I think that's so good because I mean, when I hear like about HR, I don't necessarily really understand all the stuff that encompasses it, and so that's why I think it's really great that people that are like you guys today, all of you, and that you've got your own, YouTube channel there, trying to demystify that process a little bit. I think that's great because it is a very good fit for psychology students, and it's one of those things that we want to be promoting. And of course, there are all sorts of different ways of doing it, from going down the organisational pathway to doing something in a more applied kind of context. Amanda, do you have any questions from either yourself or the students yet?
Yeah, no, we've got students asking questions already, so that's brilliant. Keep them coming. Couple of ones that I think would be good for us to start with. Somebody was asking, what are your day-to-day roles like? And I think that reflects what Doran was saying. What are you actually doing? Can you tell us a little bit more about day-to-day, what this HR or development role looks like?
Vicky, do you want to start?
Yeah, I can start. So with my job in psychometrics, we're mainly doing, we have a lot of long-term projects running at the same time. So it would be, a case of I might have, 5 different projects for different assessments that are all in different stages. So it could be I'm writing items for a questionnaire for one test, or for another test we might be before doing the validation process that involves pre-testing on hundreds of participants and running statistics, and I'm might be kind of preparing we do like webinars for clients on different areas of psychology. So it's a lot of long-term projects. So it's a good kind of thing if you like working for a long time, like towards a project. It's not the kind of thing where you have instant results. These things take ages to do, and revising tests. So yeah, things like that.
But again, it sounds really interesting. I mean, just the idea of, like, we know, don't we, as psychology students, and if there are any biology students here, I'm sure it's the same in your discipline, that, when we do create questionnaires and validate them, that is an entire job. I mean, it's like people do PhDs in just that one thing. How on earth do you take something and make sure that it's robust for a group of people, and you find out the average and the mean response, and you've got to work out bell-shaped curves, I imagine, and all that kind of stuff. But
yeah,
it is quite a magic process, and I think it's a real privilege to work in it, because it's also very transformative for companies, and for making sure that there's a good fit between client and an organisation.
Yeah, and it does involve, like, day to day, a lot of the things I learned on my degrees. So things in stats, and also in research. It's all been really. The good thing is I've been able to apply those like every day in what I do, which is great.
Fantastic. Avery, do you want to talk us through your sort of typical day?
Yes, absolutely. I think this is such a standard answer, but it's really hard for me to say what my day to day is, I guess, on average, because it's so varied for what I do. But I guess just to walk through what I've done today, I think is a good example. We're recruiting heavily at Ampersand right now for both technical roles as well as a role for my direct report, so a talent and social media manager. So this morning I conducted a few interviews for that, and landed on someone, which is great. So that means the rest of this week we'll be planning that person's onboarding and getting the offer letter out and things like that. I have some HR one-to-ones this afternoon, which is me checking in with some of our employees on the team now to see how they're doing, making sure that everything's going okay. Particularly now that we're all working remotely, it's super important to make sure that they have that contact with me if they need it. But then if we look at tomorrow, for example, I have no meetings, which is lovely, which means I can focus on the strategy side of things and making sure that we're focusing on some engagement stuff right now. We did some focus groups a few weeks ago that I facilitated. So now tomorrow is tying up those themes and submitting them to the board. So it's definitely varied on a day-to-day, from recruitment and some of that more instant gratification where you can find someone and you say yes, and you're like, yes, let's get this going, to more of the strategy, long-term things like well-being and engagement, which definitely have the biggest impact, but can take, as Victoria was saying, a little bit longer to kind of see that happen. So yeah, that's a little bit about what I do, or what this week looks like, at least. I'll check in next week. Could be completely different. Who knows?
I think that's great to have that variety
Exactly.
in a job. It's exactly what people often say, isn't it? That they don't want to be doing the same thing. Nothing gets boring. It doesn't become routinized or manualized. And I think that's a lovely aspect. I really do want to hear from the rest of the panel as well. So I'm going to let everyone answer this question, and then later on you can just opt in to answer the questions that you want to. But Isis, what does a day look like for you?
So I think, because I work only on project based I work only on projects with different companies. So if I kind of take you through what that life cycle would look like, so whenever I join into a company, I do a lot of requirement gathering and I guess building relationships with stakeholders and building a project team. So yeah, at the beginning, it's very much a touch contact sport, I guess, where I have to get a lot of face time with the different people that I'll be impacting. After that, it moves on to more project management, where I just make sure that my project team is meeting deadlines to a good quality, seeing if something didn't quite fit, where do we trace back to redesign that leg of the project. And then I would say underneath it all, there's a lot of measuring. So gathering KPIs, setting up accountability structures to measure the progress after my bit ends and I leave the company.
Can you kind of explain, like, to what extent you're using your psychology in this? So there's quite a lot of jargon that is being said. I'm hearing offboarding and onboarding, KPIs, which I presume are key performance indicators. But what does the person kind of centered stuff look like?
Oh God. So, well, when I think about organizational psychology specifically, there's not really, other than safety critical information, because I don't work in that field, there's nothing really that I don't use. So there's a lot of theories on how to motivate people or how to influence people or how to develop people. All of those theories, even if I'm not working on a development project, I'll still have to be leaning on, okay, what's the best way to get my product team to really engage with this and then be able to carry it out once I leave. So how am I developing people on these new models or methods? So I'm probably really annoying in the sense of I bring in a lot of models. So in the first few weeks, maybe the first month that I'm with a company, they're having to soak in a lot of like the Tom and Skillman conflict resolution model, or, you know, whatever it is that's relevant at that time. I bring a lot of psychology into it.
Okay, that sounds wonderful. And Alisha, obviously you're just starting out, really. You only graduated last year, right? So, so kind of what's it like in this new company? You've been there for like about a month, I think, and you're just getting that sort of sense of what they do. So I guess, again, there's not such a thing as a typical day, but what's your sense of a day like?
Yeah, so for me at the moment, what I'm trying to do is just really understand the business, because I think that that's like really important to carry out my role, especially. But on a typical day-to-day basis, what I usually do is kind of draw up like contracts and stuff for incoming people who are going to be employees with us. So at the moment, we've got quite a few interns that are starting with us. So I'm doing that whole process of basically onboarding them and getting them through that process. On top of that as well, I've joined a few projects that I'm really like interested in. So we've got one at the moment that's kind of going over like people's personal development within their work. And we really want to promote this program that we're trying to get people to kind of use so that they understand the benefits of basically like planning out their lives and like what they, you know, where they want to go basically within their role. So I've kind of incorporated like skills that I've been using from my YouTube channel actually for this. I've created like a video already that's going to promote this personal development strategy that we've got to everyone across the European part of our company. So that's been really good, and I've literally been able to kind of liaise with like my manager and like other people within the HR team to ensure that like that project is set out and we're ready to go with it. So yeah, I'm also kind of like training, I'm getting training basically on like how to use the HR systems. And I'm also like being involved in a lot of meetings, just kind of putting forward my ideas, using the skills that I gained from my psychology degree and also from my master's degree in HR, just to kind of like help people to kind of understand things from a different perspective. Because I think it's really good that like, as I'm quite young in the business, like I'm able to kind of give a different viewpoint on like how things are being done, and they really appreciate that, especially for like the onboarding processes at the moment, because I'm new as well. So, and we're trying to develop our onboarding experience. I just came out of a meeting before this actually talking about that. So yeah, like on a day-to-day basis, it does vary a lot, and I do have a lot of free time at the moment as well, just to kind of learn for myself, because we've got like a university kind of platform as well that I can go on and kind of do courses and stuff like that. So yeah, it's been really good so far. And even though it's been a month, like I've definitely like learned quite a lot in that space of time, because this is full time, this internship. So yeah.
That sounds amazing. I can see that we've got lots of questions coming in. Amanda has kindly prompted me. So let us know, Amanda. Let's hear some more. Or maybe we'll do more of a quick fire round. So
one more about the role, and then I think the process of getting in, getting on. I've got some org side related questions coming in as well. But one thing that came in early was, what's the best thing and the hardest thing about your roles? So I think people are trying to make decisions a little bit, so to get the kind of the highs and the lows, if you like.
So does anyone want to take that?
I'll start, only because this is probably going to be a disappointing answer. I absolutely love working in business psychology and contracting, being a consultant. So I don't have anything that I dislike. What is hard though is that you're constantly interviewing or bidding for different projects. So I've been quite lucky to work for consultancies that have kind of backed me into those. And then I almost, without really thinking about it, during lockdown decided to start contracting, which was a bit harder than I probably expected it to be. But yeah, so it's the constant interviewing, having to bid for things that I don't like. Everything else, I love working with strategy and people programs, so I couldn't fault it.
Isis, does that mean that in terms of salary, is it something that obviously changes then, and you're constantly thinking, well, not constantly thinking, but you're thinking, am I going to get that? And if I don't get that, what's my fallback position?
So it changes in the sense of, if a contract runs out before I get another one, I will have no salary. But in terms of what my rate is, it wouldn't really change. So I can't, across the field, I guess, every position will have a standard or an average rate that you'd go for. So that's pretty stable.
Does anyone else want to just have that answer that question? Or yeah, Alisha.
Yeah, so I would say the best thing is that as an intern, like, you are able to get involved in so many different opportunities and projects and stuff. It's not just like the normal admin things that I can do. So I really think that that's a real highlight, to be honest, because managers like give you flexibility as well. And I'd say probably like one of the worst kind of things is time management, in a way, like, because sometimes like you get given so many tasks, sometimes you actually have to kind of like say to certain people in the company, you know, I actually can't do that right now, maybe can I do that at a different point? And sometimes letting people down can be a bit tough, but you have to do it so that you know you're managing your time properly and giving your all to the work that you're doing. So that's what I would say.
Great advice, actually, and I think that's true of many different jobs in different sectors as well. Yeah, I sometimes have to say, no, I can't quite do that now,
Yeah.
and then feel terrible about it. I haven't quite got the balance yet, but I'm working on it. Amanda.
Yeah, so I've got a combination of questions for this one. Somebody asking, what are your roles actually called? So if you're able just to comment on that, as well as say a little bit about the hiring process, how you got this role. So was it advertised? Did you have to kind of create it? How did you kind of get in, please, as well?
Avery.
Okay, cool, thanks. So my job title is HR and talent manager. So just to answer that. The selection process for me was a little bit different, and it's actually something I would, I guess, advise in some ways. I searched all the jobs that were at Manchester's job fairs as my first starting point when I was still doing my master's, and any that sponsored. Obviously, I needed to stay here and work, so they were my top contenders. And when I went to the job fair, I acted as a pre-interview almost. So I dressed a little bit nicer, made sure I had questions for the booth and for the people at Ampersand that I wanted to ask, and was prepared in that sense. And they were there looking for developers, so not at all within HR, but they had a talent role open. So I went and talked to them about it, and it was my first introduction at that point. And I think if I didn't do that and I just submitted online, it would just have been another kind of CV within the talent role. So that was a really good, I guess, way for me to get my foot in the door and say, listen, I know what I'm talking about. You just got to give me a chance with it almost. After that, I submitted my application online and just mentioned that I met someone at Ampersand, and it went from, I had 2 face-to-face interviews after that just talked about my master's experience. And I will say when I applied, it was a talent manager role, which was strictly recruitment, which I liked, but prefer the other HR bits. And once I got into the role, I was able to then kind of wiggle my way into doing the other portions of HR that I really liked. And again, bring my master's to it at that point. So for me, it was really taking advantage of what the university offered and making sure I was seeing people that were there to see students and taking those opportunities really seriously at the start of my selection process.
That's such a great story, isn't it? About going out and you know, physically face-to-face meeting somebody and then referencing that in the CV. It's a strategy we should all be using. Amanda, I think.
Just a quick question from somebody. Avery wanted to remind what your master's was in, please.
Oh, yes. It was in business psychology, which is the same track as organizational psychology, but it's not the, what's the word I'm looking for? Like accredited with the British Psychological Society. But I didn't need that for my role, so I'm just the business psych side.
Can I say also that my last 3 jobs I've got by being proactive in terms of not at a job fair, but through LinkedIn, actually finding what companies I like, having a look at their website to see what open vacancies they have, and then directly messaging people that I think would be relevant for that department. So yeah, I think that goes a long way to not just be a CV in a big pile. Yeah.
That is great hints and tips there for everybody listening. And Vicky, what's your exact title then? I think that was the question. Was that the question, Amanda? And how did you get into it?
Yes.
I think you've kind of said a little bit about how you got into it, but if you can say a bit more.
Yeah, so I said R&D consultant, which is research and development. They've actually changed the name of the department. So technically it's science and innovation, but R&D for all intents. And I think, I mean, I'll probably get told off for saying this, but I think for me, it was kind of luck in a sense. When I did my master's, I decided that I wanted to work in psychometrics, which is, you know, quite niche, but I chose to do my dissertation in personality assessment. And it was kind of a risk when I came out because the jobs don't come up that often because it is, you know, quite a small area. But one happened to come up that an internship for R&D in psychometrics. So I applied for it, and I think, yeah, it was just one of those like kind of stars aligning kind of situation, where it was everything that I had done in my masters, and I'd also done the I don't know if any of you know about the test user certificates in ability and personality, the psychometric certificates. I'd taken those as well. So yeah, it all just fitted in quite well when I got the job. But it was an internship, so I had to start off, minimum wage, so it wasn't walking straight into a good job.
Amanda?
All right, there's another question came in before, Victoria, about did you get your test user certificates as part of your masters?
Yeah, so I did it through my masters. They were kind of subsidised, but or just make it cheaper. But yeah, I did it at the end of my master's course through there. You can take them outside, but if you're considering doing a master's, I think most masters offer them. But yeah, that helped me. But it's not necessary. It's not completely necessary.
Brilliant. And Alisha, sorry.
Yeah, so my role is basically people support, but I'm basically a people support intern. But yeah, like I basically, as I was saying before, just doing like a lot of admin kind of work and like answering HR queries, drawing up contracts and that kind of thing. But getting into the role, for me, I had to do a lot of basically searching and applying. There was a lot of rejections. I was trying to apply for grad roles, but there wasn't really much coming up. And then obviously the COVID crisis happened, and that kind of like, I was in an admin internship at that point, and that got cut off basically because of COVID. So I literally had to keep on looking and searching. But I used LinkedIn. That was like my prominent source. And that's actually how I found this job, on LinkedIn. And so I feel like a lot of people, sometimes they don't realize the potential that LinkedIn has as a source, of finding a job. Like literally, like you can use it for so many different, it has so many different uses. So yeah, I definitely would recommend like looking on LinkedIn as well. And also, as someone else on the panel said, directly messaging people, because that's how I got my admin internship. I directly messaged like the manager, and I was able to get that one. So yeah.
Brilliant. And again, another great message about rejection being just part of the course, and you just get back on the horse, as it were. Isis?
Yes, so technically right now my job title is onboarding experience specialist, but like I said, I consider myself a business psychologist, and that's how I market myself as well. I got my current job through making connections at LinkedIn, on LinkedIn. I was networking I reached out with with someone that was contracting at AO, and we had a conversation on the phone. She said she really liked me, my experience, and how culturally I'd fit really well into AO. And yeah, I guess created this position, so to speak, for me to come on board and do this project for them. But honestly, the last 2 jobs before that were the same. It was just me messaging department heads, or heads of people experience, the heads of business psychology departments, and just
saying, hi, this is me.
They wanted to hire me. Yeah.
Just on the issue, on the question of LinkedIn, I mean, this will be music to Amanda's ears that you're talking about LinkedIn in such a way, because we're constantly trying to encourage our students to get on LinkedIn and to actually use it, not just sign up and let it sit there, but to actually use it and to learn the tools. And actually it's interesting because you were all recruited today via LinkedIn. That's how we tracked you, and here you are on our panel today. So it is a very powerful tool.
Definitely. So just to add to that, a lot of the time jobs are only posted on LinkedIn and not on other websites. So mine was only on LinkedIn. So if I hadn't used it, I wouldn't have found it. Sad to say.
Amazing. Yeah, brilliant. Amanda,
some questions around internships, getting internships. And so I know a lot of you have said you've created your own opportunities, but are there any comments you'd like to make about getting experience and internships along the way to where you are now? Any good places to look? Any good tips for that beyond the LinkedIn view, really?
Can I answer that? So I would basically say, because for my the other unpaid internships that I did in my master's degree, I did 2. I actually got those through the advice of my careers consultant at my Aston University that I was at. And basically they sent out like bulletins and stuff, advertising like internship opportunities. And also I was able to kind of like talk with them as well. And they were able to help me find certain internship opportunities, because with Aston, they actually work closely with, there's a couple businesses close to like the area that work with them, that provide certain placements. And then I literally just went through the application processes that way to get those ones. And then that one was for like a learning and development position. So it was really helpful that like the careers team were like, you know, supportive. With my other internship that I got, that one, as I was saying previously, was via LinkedIn, to be honest. I did really have to be proactive, and my careers advisors were telling me that you have to be very creative in the way that you're looking for things, especially in this current climate, because now we're in a time where it is getting even more difficult to find opportunities. So we can't just go through like the normal route of all the time anyway, of just like trying to apply online. You've really got to be proactive, and that's something that I really want to stress, because sometimes I think we're scared to do it, we're fearful, but it's one of those things where like if you just go for that opportunity, even if they don't answer you, continue with it and keep going. And I really think that needs to be stressed, because I was scared, especially when I was like in University of Manchester. I never reached out to anybody because I was scared, but I do think that that's something that we need to kind of promote a lot more. And then with the internship that I'm currently at now, that one as well, that was LinkedIn. But I would say like try your best to look on different like websites and stuff, maybe that people are promoting within careers, or just within the university or at careers fairs, and just keep your options open in that sense. Don't just like be narrow-minded and just look at one platform, look everywhere. That's what I would say, because yeah, as I said, the current climate, it's really difficult right now, so you've just got to do whatever you can. So yeah, that's my advice.
Just in terms of that rejection piece, or even thinking further ahead. So yesterday I had an interview for my next contract, and obviously through LinkedIn, sorry guys, but this person I actually started speaking to in like the end of January. I reached out to her, and I just kept every couple of months being like, hey, like I'm still here. And then about 3 weeks ago, she reached out to me and said, hey, do you know what? Let's have an interview. I think I'll have a position early next year. And because you've been so persistent with me, I wanted to reach out to you first. And one thing I'll say, because I know giving presentations at universities is not fun, but especially in business psychology, I give presentations at least a couple times a week, and every interview I do requires me to build and deliver a presentation to a panel. So yeah, just practice that, because
and presumably what you're saying is that's become a lot easier, a lot more natural.
Definitely. I used to get like really nervous and have to really psych myself up for it at university, where now I don't even think about it. Like delivering a presentation is so second nature to me. Hence why I'm here talking.
Yeah, I can really resonate. I mean, even when you start off lecturing, it's an ordeal, and then now you just do it. It's reflexive. So again, the more you practice any skill, especially presenting yourself, finding a narrative for yourself, working out how to sell yourself on your CV and your cover letter, the easier that becomes, and the more skilled you become at it. Amanda.
Yes. Couple of organisational psychology specific questions I'm going to try and roll into one. Someone asking, what makes a good experience to get onto the org psych masters? You know, do you need relevant experience? What makes a good application? And also, when you're on it, what's good experience to get?
Do you want me to go? I feel like I'm talking a lot, but
No, Isis, yes, perfect.
I'll continue to talk. So getting on the masters, I had already worked in recruitment, so I think that helped. And by the time I applied, I was also doing a matrix management position with new leaders and how to embed them into new leadership roles, as well as their team into their roles as well. So I had a lot of previous experience, but what I will say is getting the masters, I can't comment on because I already had experience, but getting jobs, making sure that you're being really proactive, doing unpaid internships or actually like messaging people and going, can I just shadow you like once a week for half a day for a couple of months? Doing those things while you're studying can help you get good, well-paid jobs once you graduate versus just starting off with your internships and things like that. Then try to do that as early as possible. Did that answer the question? I can't remember.
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. Avery, I think you wanted to come in.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, I did my master's right after my undergrad, so I didn't have a ton of practical experience, a few internships, but nothing like mind-blowing. But I think an important thing to keep in mind when you are applying for something like that is relationship management is key in any HR role and in any psychology role, and being able to speak to that on your application and having different opportunities that are about building relationships, I think is an important thing and stands out. And just to echo, I guess, what Isis said around getting experience on it, I would say any office opportunity you can get is going to be helpful, because it might not be HR related, but when you do get to an HR role, you'll have that employee office experience to help guide the decisions you make, and it won't be, I guess, that learning curve around being in an office all the time or being working all the time, I guess. But just a little bit of insight into what it's like to be an employee and how you can make things better when you get to an HR job, I think will help you when you do look for that next job after you graduate from your master's.
Brilliant, thank you. Oh, and Vicky.
Yeah, just kind of similar. I did a master's in organisational psychology, and I hadn't had a psychology related role. I'd had a role in admin, but I think if you can demonstrate like why you want to learn organisational psychology and demonstrate like interest in it, I think that's the main part about getting onto a master's course. It probably like varies in different universities, but I don't think you have to have relevant experience, and it's even the same during your course. It's up to you how you want to do it. If you want to focus on learning, getting the knowledge, but if you can get experience in any kind of office job, I think will help you.
Let's get another question, because I know we're coming towards the end of the hour, and I know this one's going to be popular. Could you have got where you are now without taking the masters that you've all taken? Could you do it without?
Well, my manager, she didn't do it, but I think for me, I definitely would have needed it. It did specify having the masters, and that's where I learned about psychometrics mainly. So it definitely helped me massively.
Great. Anyone else?
I would say that I don't think you particularly need to do a master's to get to where I'm at the moment, but I do think that it is going to help. Well, it has helped me in my position so far, because there's some people in my company that have not specifically done any kind of the qualifications on the level I've done for HR. So there's times when I'm able to kind of come at them with certain ideas that I've literally got from my degree. But I do think that if you want to get to certain positions, like for example, management in HR, I think that having a master's degree is definitely necessary in some cases. But I do think it's all about experience, to be honest. Like, if you just immerse yourself in trying to gain as much experience as you can, then you can kind of get anywhere, to be honest. But having that qualification is a plus as well at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
I think just gonna say something too. I don't think the content I learned was obviously very helpful, but for me, it was more about, it put me at the right place at the right time being on my master's. So it's all about timing, isn't it? But I also have my CIPD level 5 qualification. And I think if I would have done that route from the very beginning after I did my undergrad, I think I could still get a role that I'm in now through that. It just gave me that, I guess, level up in terms of practical knowledge and experience to feel more confident in myself. Not necessarily that I couldn't do it from the beginning, but it gives you that confidence that I think is really helpful. So there are more, I guess, shorter term trainings and qualifications you could also go for and get really good experience and knowledge if a master's program is not something that you want to do.
Okay. I think we've probably got time for just one more question, or maybe two. Go on, Amanda.
Just a comment as well, really, to add to what's been said. You've almost like got an opportunity through the grad schemes to get into HR roles without relevant qualifications, because often the employers are recruiting you on your evidence of skills and motivation. And just to say that on Monday is the Finance, Business and Management Fair. So it'll be online this year. But as part of that fair, there are a number of organisations that are recruiting for HR roles. So in a moment, I'll try and put the link into the chat, but I really would encourage you to go along to those, because it's a way of identifying HR roles without the need to have a master's. And then obviously, if that doesn't work out, the master's route is another good one too. One question though that did come in very early, it was our first question in. What's the best way to stand out then? If we go through this process, what do you think helped you to stand out to the recruiters?
I would say that what helped me to stand out was my channel. I'm not gonna lie. My YouTube channel, because the recruiters saw that like I kind of came with confidence. I had a real passion for HR as well. Like I really like wanted to get into the industry, even though I didn't have that much experience at the time. That actually helped me to stand out with the other kind of candidates as well, that were also kind of trying to get the role. I also think that like trying to just do something that's different to everybody else can definitely like make recruiters think that you're going to bring something different to the table to your organization. So yeah, I definitely think that maybe like doing something that like you're really passionate about, that it doesn't even necessarily have to be with HR, but something that just shows that you've got that confidence and that you're willing to bring something to an organization, can really help you to stand out. That's what I'd say.
From my point of view, I do a ton of interviews for various roles within my role now, and I think there are three things that what makes a candidate stand out to me, no matter the level they're applying for. So I guess I have three pieces of advice. The first is to always have a cup of water or a drink. So if you need to think about your answer to the question, you can take a sip of water and it's super natural, and then you don't have to rush into an answer and get yourself nervous. You can definitely tell when someone is kind of making stuff up on the spot. So that's a really helpful way to do that. I would always answer a question with a relevant experience that you've had so that you can refer back to, and not just something that you would do, but I was in a situation that helped me build this relationship, XYZ, this was the result. Being able to give practical examples to each question is a great way for the interviewer to say, this is how this person would fit into the business. And lastly, whenever a candidate prepares really good questions to ask me, that definitely makes them stand out in terms of they prepared, they looked into the business, they know kind of what they do and don't know and are prepared to ask about it and not afraid to challenge back. So I think those three things can help anybody at any role stand out to an interviewer and help you remain calm as well as you go through. It's a power shift between the two parties, isn't it? So it's just a helpful way to kind of get through that process. Hopefully that's helpful.
Really helpful. I'm just about out of time, and I really want to get this last question into all of you. So what do you wish you'd known as a student before starting your career? What's the one thing that you wish you could go back to your former self and tell them before you started embarking on this path? Isis, do you want to have a go?
Yeah. So I think, I guess it's like that Rome wasn't built in a day. I feel like in my undergrad, especially, I was probably just a ball of anxiety at all times because I worked full time in terms of I needed to support myself. And alongside that, I was trying to do every internship, work shadowing, anything that I could to get relevant experience as well. And again, like I said, all within forensics, and actually never even ended up going into forensics. So when I graduated from my undergrad, I was so disappointed that I hadn't gone into a forensics master's. And I think in hindsight, get relevant experience. Yeah, of course, it's not the end of the world. If you do want to do a master's, obviously, I think all of us on this panel did. It's okay to take a couple of years out and work, because that's going to shape what you want to do long term anyway. And yeah, just breathe and enjoy the process.
Brilliant, thank you. Vicky?
Yeah, so I guess it's kind of, similar to ISIS. I think a key thing, is not to worry, basically, because you'll get there at the end. And I think it's not to fall into the trap of comparing yourself to other people, sort of if you're feeling like it's happening for them and it's not happening for you. Everyone's on their own timeline, and, not to worry if you have to kind of take a step back to take a step forward. Because if taking opportunities that you think might not be what you're fully capable of, it's quite often it'll pay off in the end. And sometimes you just got to put that work in to get the payouts at the end.
Fantastic. Alisha?
I would definitely say that to my past self, I should have embraced my fears, because I feel like there was times when I was rejected, quite a few times on some placement opportunities that I wanted to do, because I wanted to change my degree into like psychology with placement. And I feel like because I just kind of saw that I was getting rejected and stuff like that, I was just like, oh, I just don't feel like I can continue like applying. Like I feel like I'm not good enough, or do you know what I mean? Like you have that kind of fear sometimes. And I feel like if I went back to my past self, I'd say, Alisha, just embrace it. Like keep going. It doesn't matter if you're gonna be rejected. Like someone else actually might, take you. Like you there is gonna be opportunities out there. It's just you've got to keep on going after it. And I feel like once I started my master's degree, that's when I started thinking like that. And then that's when I started like reaching out to people and just applying, even though I had so many rejections. But the end result like is the best result. And also just enjoy the process, as someone else said as well. Enjoy the process.
Fabulous advice. And Avery, finally.
Yes, I absolutely agree with what everybody has said for sure. So 100% echo that. I think something I wish I would have done that would have been helpful is maybe be a little bit more involved in non-student or non-uni communities. There's tons of meetups that go on in Manchester that are people related, or doing webinars. You can sit in on loads from professionals and just listen to what they're saying. And not so much, I think it just would have helped me be prepared for different situations and practical things that I might not have thought about. And there's actually a Slack group. I don't know if you are familiar with Slack. It's like an instant messaging platform that a lot of businesses use. But there's a workspace called Resources for Humans. So if everybody after this, I would Google Resources for Humans Slack group. And it's a really, really great resource. They've got loads of channels about learning and development and well-being, and there's a job board on there and you can search for jobs. So I think it's just those types of resources that aren't necessarily the most active, but still keep you thinking in the right direction and just open your mind to things, I think would have been really useful for me to know about when I was in school. So highly recommend getting involved with those things.
Brilliant. Okay, so our hour is up, unfortunately. That was incredibly insightful. So thank you so much. I feel like the advice that was shared and the quality of insights were just outstanding. And, all the messages about, rejection and getting over that and continuing to battle through about how presenting, you get better at it the more you do it, and how that can become, things that were an obstacle at university won't be an obstacle in the real world. Stuff about standing out and, going to actual fairs and making that contact and doing that. Also, ideas about how, you don't have to have a particular career path to actually find, what you're going to love in the end. As long as you keep going, keep pushing forward, that's all that matters. Okay, so I think there's been something posted in the chat about Slido. So we run these events for you guys, and we bring back our alumni. We'd love your feedback, good or bad. If you've got suggestions for how we can make them better, then do let us know. And I think with that, we can stop the recording if Leah is controlling that.